Back during the summer of 2014, I unknowingly dated a cray-cray chick I met on Meetup. For those of you not familiar with it, Meetup is a social networking website that pairs groups of people together around shared interests, such as gaming, movies, hiking, drinks, etc. It just so happened that a coworker of mine had suggested that I check out Meetup, since I was new to the area and didn't have many friends. Plus, and this was according to him, it was a great place to meet a bunch of single girls who liked the same things I did. Considering I was going through a really rough 3-year dry spell at the time, I was definitely itching for a new romance. As coincidence would have it, that's where I met Ava. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. The red flags were there from the start, but I either didn't recognize them for what they were, or simply chose to ignore them. Guys tend to do that when dating a really hot girl. People like to say personality is more important than looks, but let's be honest. Most men would easily date a Kate Upton-esque looking chick, even if she was on the cray-cray end of the spectrum. As long as she had a hot face and an amazing body to go along with it, craziness be damned. To make matters worse, pair an attractive psycho woman with a guy who never had much luck with dating to begin with, and you had a recipe for disaster. That's basically what happened to me. Now, I'm not what you might call a Chad. That is, a stereotypically hot 6-foot-tall Chris Evans with sculpted muscles and a cute smile. You know, the 10 out of 10 kind of guy most women went after. In stark contrast, at 5'7"-ish and somewhat on the skinnier side, I was maybe a 6.5 or 7 in the looks department, possibly cuter if I shaved and cut my hair, but I was hardly a Chad by any stretch of the imagination. I was and still am what you'd consider a nice guy. You know, the type of guy who was courteous around girls and got butterflies in his stomach whenever he tried talking to one. I wasn't a simp necessarily, but just a nice guy. Hardly the bad boy personality that attracted most women. To that end, women rarely matched with me on Tinder, let alone gave me the time of day in real life or replied to my messages on OkCupid and Plenty of Fish. Up until this story occurred, I had only ever been in one real relationship, which ended badly after my girlfriend not only cheated on me, but she eventually dumped me for, you guessed it, a Chad. So yeah, it was very easy for a 22-year-old forever single nice guy with zero six-pack and a non-existent love life to miss the red flags. Desperation and loneliness got the better of me. Anyway, here's a bit of backstory. My name is Daniel. I'd recently graduated from Penn State with a 3.5 GPA and a degree in programming, with aspirations of becoming a video game developer. Growing up during the 90s and early 2000s, computers and video games had always been my thing, and I wanted to turn my passion into a lifelong career by getting paid to create the very things I enjoyed playing. My other hobbies included geeking out over Dragon Ball Z and Star Wars, or playing World of Warcraft with my fellow geek friends online. Yeah, I was and still am a bit of a nerd. Add to that my less than masculine build and soft-spoken voice, and you can see why girls never really took an interest in me. My dating horror story began one Friday evening after work when, out of complete boredom and loneliness, I took my coworker's advice and made an account on Meetup. I remember thinking at the time, what did I have to lose? If I went to an event and didn't like the feel of it, all I had to do was leave. No harm, no foul, right? So that night, I spent some time browsing through all the local meetups, eventually settling on one in particular that seemed right up my alley. Geeks and Gamers. It was, as its name suggested, a meetup that catered to the geeks and video game fanatics in my area. Coincidentally, there was a meetup going on later that night to see Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, one of the summer blockbusters of that year and a movie I had been wanting to see. Scrolling through the list of attendees, I noticed 10 people were signed up, 4 women and 6 guys. This included the group organizer, a guy by the name of Mark. Everyone appeared to be around my age, which was nice since I didn't want to find myself hanging out with a bunch of middle-aged older folk. Of course, being a curious single guy, I couldn't help but click on the profiles of each of the women signed up. The first 3 girls were pretty cute, but unfortunately they all mentioned in their profiles that they were in a relationship. I remember feeling a bit disappointed, but I quickly reminded myself that I wasn't going with the expectation of meeting someone. I was just going to hang out and make new friends. Even so, I nonetheless clicked on the fourth female profile, and upon first glance, I was immediately smitten. Her main photo was a top-down selfie of an incredibly attractive, bikini-clad 20-something blonde, and whether or not it was done on purpose, the angle of the picture greatly emphasized her cleavage. Her profile said her name was Ava, and in her bio she stated that she enjoyed going to the movies, playing video games, reading manga, and watching Star Wars. We have a lot in common, I remember thinking. Not that it really mattered, but she also mentioned that she was single. My fingers instantly clicked the RSVP button, and within an hour I was in my car heading to the meetup spot that also happened to be my favorite movie theater. I didn't know what to expect, but for some reason I wasn't as nervous as I thought I'd be, which was weird since I usually got pretty nervous around new people, girls especially. I guess I was just more excited than anything else. As per Mark's instructions, I arrived at the theater about a half hour early before the movie start time, and waited in the lobby for the rest of the group to trickle in. When, after about 10 minutes, no one else from the meetup appeared, I started to get anxious and wondered if the event had somehow gotten canceled last minute, or if I somehow received directions to the wrong theater. Just to be certain, I pulled out my iPhone and logged into the meetup app to verify the details. That was when a young woman with one of the sultriest voices I've ever heard addressed me from my side.
Hey, are you Daniel?
I lifted my gaze from my phone and remember feeling my heart skip a beat as I locked eyes with Aphrodite herself. I knew right away who she was, having recognized her from her profile. A blue-eyed 23-year-old blonde with long, curly yellow hair and one heck of an amazing body. Ava literally looked as if she'd walked right off the covers of some Sports Illustrated swimsuit magazine. If you've ever seen a picture of professional golfer Paige Spiranak, she looked something like her. As it was midsummer, Ava wore blue denim shorts, stylish sandals, and a white low-cut tank top, which left her cleavage, how do I say it delicately, popping out. I am not exaggerating by saying she was definitely a 10 out of 10 on the attractiveness scale, maybe even an 11. I choked on my words, unable to speak for a time. I just stared at her awestruck like an idiot for a few uncomfortable seconds. Her immense beauty and the scent of her perfume overwhelmed my manly senses. I practically felt my heart pounding through my chest. I only hoped she didn't hear it.
Daniel?
I finally gathered the courage to utter a response. Yeah, I'm Daniel, I replied slowly and with a hint of nervousness.
Hi, Daniel. I'm Ava.
I readily accepted her handshake. Her hand was soft, elegant, and her nails, which she kept styled with acrylic extensions, were well manicured. Everything about her, from her name to her beauty to the clothes she wore and the eloquent tone of her voice, radiated with the allure of an Olympic goddess. At the time, a part of me couldn't believe fate had the fortune of throwing such a hot chick my way. Looking back, I realize now meeting Ava was more of a curse than anything else, but more to that point later.
You're with the meetup, right? I recognize you from your profile pic.
Yeah, I am.
I thought it was you. You know, your picture really doesn't do you justice. You're way cuter in person.
Ava said this rather flirtatiously, and with a twinkle in her eye. That comment came as a shock. It wasn't every day a woman, especially a hot one, gave me props about my looks. Was I dreaming? My cheeks reddened with blush. Thanks, I remember saying, unsure of how to really respond. I considered telling her she was way cuter than her profile pic too, but I quickly decided against it. The shy, nice guy in me couldn't muster the courage to say that. Besides, I was pretty sure a hot chick like Ava received plenty of compliments about her looks from guys all the time. There was no need for me to pile on additional praise. Instead, I followed up with, "So, is this where you guys normally meet before the movie?"
I was going to ask you. I'm new to meetups. Is it your first time too?
I nodded, and without thinking, I blurted out, "I'm a meetup virgin." Right afterwards, I thought to myself, a meetup virgin? Really? So lame. No game at all, Dan. That's why you're forever single. I half expected Ava to give me a weirded out look, but surprisingly she found my corny remark amusing. That or she was just good at faking it. She responded with a soft giggle.
Meetup virgin? Funny. I like that. I guess we're both meetup virgins then. So, do you always get this nervous around girls, or just the pretty ones?
Her question was direct, to the point. It caught me completely off guard. Was my nice guy nervousness so apparent? I drew breath to say something, anything, but I honestly didn't know what to say. Thankfully, fate intervened that very moment when another one of the meetup attendees, a tall and somewhat skinny ginger guy who I instantly recognized as the event organizer Mark, approached us and asked if we were part of the group. Saved by Mark, I thought to myself in relief. Out loud I told him yes, and he introduced himself to both me and Ava. His eyes instantly widened in astonishment at the sight of her, and I could tell he thought the same thing about Ava as I did, as most guys probably did when they saw her. But as intrigued as he was by her, Mark nonetheless maintained a friendly and professional composure. He informed us that the rest of the group was already inside the theater, and that they had decided to seat themselves a bit early due to long lines. He apologized for not telling us through the app since his phone couldn't get Wi-Fi in a theater, and I told him it was cool. No worries. Mark then asked if we bought our tickets already, and both me and Ava said no. He suggested that we do so, and to look for him in the upper middle row of the theater afterwards. He then left to save us 2 seats while we waited in line to buy our tickets.
He seems nice.
Yeah, he does, I replied with a smile, doing my best to sound confident.
Glad he's not a creep. You never know with guys sometimes. You don't seem like a creep either, Dan. Is it cool if I call you Dan?
Sure, I replied. That's what my friends call me, and for reference, I am not a creep. I try not to be anyway.
You're not. I can tell. I have a sixth sense about guys. You strike me as a nice guy. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I like nice guys. I've been hurt in the past by all the bad boys. I'm so over them.
I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, sounding genuinely remorseful for her. I remember questioning how anyone in their right mind could hurt such an attractive woman. I then asked her, So, what made you join Meetup?
I'm new to the area. Was just looking to make some new friends, I guess.
Gotcha. Where you from?
Kutztown.
Kutztown? Never heard of it. Just for reference, this story takes place in northeastern Pennsylvania, for those of you not familiar with the aforementioned locations.
It's a little town out in the middle of Mennonite and Amish country. Lots of farms, lots of cows. And in the center of it all is a large college campus that I went to school at.
Cool. So, were you born there?
Yep. Pennsylvania Dutch, born and raised. What about you?
I'm actually from New York.
The city?
Queens.
Get out. You don't sound like you're from the city.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I was born there, but I ended up moving to PA when I was 10. I guess the accent didn't have time to develop.
You don't really sound like a Pennsylvania person either. You don't really have any accent to speak of. Your voice is very... I don't know how to describe it. Unique? I say that in a good way.
Thanks, I replied.
I could see you as a radio announcer or someone who does voiceover work. You should give it a try sometime. You never know. Maybe you could be the next David Attenborough narrating Planet Earth.
Well, I don't know about that, I replied, heartened by her accolade. It wasn't every day a hot girl said something complimentary about me. It made me feel real good inside. Eventually, we got up to the counter and I purchased a ticket for the 6:30 p.m. showing of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. When it was Ava's turn, she rummaged through her purse for a while before pulling out a credit card. She handed it to the box office clerk, who ran the card twice, only to tell her that her sale was denied.
I thought I had money on that one.
I watched as she retrieved another card from out of her purse. This, too, came back as denied for some reason. I definitely found that a bit odd. Ava then looked at me with wide puppy dog eyes and an ultra-cute smile, then asked, kindly,
I know we literally just met, but do you mind covering me this one time? I promise I'll pay you back.
That right there should have been red flag number 1. But of course my stupid self didn't recognize it for what it was. Like the nice guy that I was, I told her it was no problem and paid for her ticket. I even offered to buy her popcorn, though she declined, asking if I would instead be willing to share my popcorn with her, since she was on a strict diet and wanted to limit her intake of junk food. Once again, I happily obliged, perhaps thinking such acts of kindness would somehow earn me brownie points in her eyes. After purchasing our tickets and snacks, Ava and I joined Mark and the rest of the meetup group in the theater. Of the 11 people originally signed up, only 8 of us made it to the event. The rest of the attendees were all guys. The other female RSVPs were no-shows. Figures. That left Ava as the sole woman in the sea of testosterone, and as expected, all of the guys, who by the way were mostly dorky young adult rejects like myself, practically drooled at the sight of her. One brave portly nerd with glasses and a prominent chin mole even offered Ava his seat, but she politely rejected it and sat down next to me instead. Of course, that didn't stop all of the guys from talking to her, though. They asked her the usual stuff. Where she was from, her name, what her favorite video games and movies were, etc. It was clear they all had the hots for her, as did I, to be fully honest. And to her credit, Ava answered their questions with engaged interest, and she actually responded with friendly questions of her own. Watching it all, I couldn't figure out why such a hot, drop-dead gorgeous young woman like Ava chose to attend a meetup for geeks and nerds. Wouldn't someone of her caliber be more interested in sororities and chasing after toned chads? Maybe I should have seen that as another red flag. Eventually the movie started, and the back-and-forth chit-chat quieted down. Ava relaxed in her seat next to me and shared my popcorn, occasionally brushing her hand against mine whenever we both had our fingers in the bucket. I have to admit, touching her like that filled my stomach with butterflies. We didn't really say much to each other at all throughout the movie, but I did find myself stealing occasional glances at her, as one usually did when they found someone attractive. Mind you, I wasn't eyeing her in a creepy stalker way, but just in a, wow, this girl's really attractive kind of way. Interestingly, every time I turned to look at her, I caught out of the corner of my eyes as she quickly turned her head to look away from me. I couldn't be sure, but it seemed as if she was playing eye tag. You know, the thing people did when you catch them looking at you, but they quickly look away. I briefly thought back to when she told me I was cute, and I wondered if maybe, just maybe, she had a thing for me. But I quickly dismissed the possibility. Maybe she was just being nice when she made that comment. Moreover, I knew she likely had a boyfriend already given how smoking hot she was. What attractive girl like that didn't have a man? And even if she was single, I knew there was no way she'd ever take an interest in a barely average-looking, under 6-foot non-Chad software programmer geek like me. That kind of things didn't even happen in the movies. Speaking of movies, I remember being quite satisfied with the Planet of the Apes film we were watching. Overall, it exceeded my expectations. When the movie was over, Mark asked if we'd all be interested in heading to a local restaurant for dinner afterwards, in order to discuss the film and to just hang out and get to know each other a little better. Everyone agreed, except Ava.
I'd go with you guys, but I have to get up early for work in the morning.
One of the guys commented that tomorrow was a Saturday, and asked what kind of job required her to work on the weekends.
I work as an emergency room tech, so yeah, I do insane shifts. They have me pulling a 12-hour tomorrow. Ugh, totally not looking forward to it.
Mark said he understood and thanked Ava for coming, and then she left. I have to admit, at the time I definitely felt bummed out seeing her go. The rest of the night proceeded pretty well though, and afterwards I drove home feeling very impressed about my first meetup experience. Returning to my apartment, I sat down at my computer and immediately logged onto the meetup site to leave Mark and his Geeks and Gamers group a glowing 5-star review. It was then that I noticed I had an unread message in my inbox. My heart paused when I saw it was from Ava. Dopamine flooded my mind and butterflies filled my stomach as I held my breath in anticipation, wondering why she was writing me. After gathering my courage, I clicked the message. It read,
Hey, it was nice meeting you tonight. I had a great time. Sorry I bailed like that, but the one guy was giving off major creeper vibes. Like seriously, he was staring at me the entire time we were in the movie. LOL. Hit me up, handsome man.
And she left me her digits. My first reaction was, whoa, did she seriously just call me handsome? And did she legit just leave me her number? During my entire years of online dating, never had any woman, let alone one so hot, given me her number. I remember briefly questioning my sanity before settling on the realization that Ava did indeed want to see me again, this time one-on-one. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have finally landed a decent girl who liked me, and I spent a good hour wondering when to text her back. Should I send her a text that very night or wait till morning? I texted one of my closest guy friends for advice, and he suggested that I wait until around lunchtime tomorrow before hitting her up, so that I wouldn't come off as too needy. So, that's what I did. The next afternoon, after spending hours in contemplation of what to say and double-checking with my friend to make sure my message sounded confident enough, I wrote Ava this text. "Hey, it's Dan from Meetup. This is my number. I'm down to chill sometime. Let me know when you're free." And with nervous fingers, I hit send and waited anxiously for a response. It honestly felt like the longest wait of my life. An hour passed, and I didn't hear anything. Then another hour, and another. I triple-checked the number Ava gave me just to make sure I typed in the correct digits. I did. After about 6 hours of no response, I pretty much threw in the towel at that point, figuring maybe Ava had somehow changed her mind about hanging out with me. I mean, it would have made sense. Why would a 10 like her even be into an average guy like me? But just when I had given up all hope, that's when my iPhone finally vibrated with a new unread message. It was from Ava. It read,
Hey, handsome man. Sorry for taking so long to write back, but work was crazy busy today. LOL. I'd love to chill. How about tomorrow?
Wording my response carefully so that I didn't sound like an obsessed simp. I wrote back, I'm down for tomorrow. Free after 1. You want to do lunch? This time I didn't have to wait long for a response. She literally replied in under 10 seconds with,
Sounds good. Are you cool with picking me up around 1? My car took a dump a week ago, so I'm out of a ride.
I wrote back, Yeah, I can do that. No worries. What's your address? She texted it to me and ended the conversation with,
Anyway, I'm gonna hit the stack a bit early. Work wore my butt out. TTYL. See you tomorrow, handsome man.
I remember going to bed that night feeling like the luckiest guy alive. I mean, let's be honest, what sane heterosexual guy wouldn't? Ava was insanely hot and into Star Wars. What wasn't to like about that? The next day, I woke early, too excited to stay in bed. I so wanted to impress Ava that I booked a haircut appointment that same morning and stopped by Walmart to purchase a new pair of jeans and a casual Hawaiian t-shirt to go along with it. I wasn't dressing up, obviously, because that would be trying too hard, but I still wanted to give off a decent, cool guy vibe. Lastly, I sprayed on a small dab of Axe body spray, because why not? Here's to seeing if the commercials about women going wild over a guy wearing Axe was really true. When noon finally rolled around, I hopped in my car and sped to Ava's house, which according to my GPS was about a half hour away from my house. With traffic factored in, the drive was more like 45 minutes, but the distance didn't bother me. Honestly, my heart was racing the entire time during the drive, but I did my best to try to relax, telling myself that if I came off as nervous or desperate, Ava would think me a creep and any chance I had with her would be over. However, as I drew closer to her house, that's when my excitement faded a bit. Manicured yards gradually turned into overgrown and unkempt lawns. Once paved streets soon filled with potholes, and nice homes slowly transformed into run-down and graffiti-laden dumps, with the windows on some even boarded up. I quickly realized I was heading into the not-so-nicest or safest part of town. That became even clearer when I observed the denizens, half of whom appeared ultra-shady or drugged out on meth. My GPS eventually led me to my destination, a really decrepit 2-story duplex with blacked-out windows and stained red awnings over the entrance. Confused and thinking I somehow had the wrong address, I texted Ava to tell her I was here, but that I thought I was at the incorrect house. She texted back right away to ask if that was my red Honda outside. It was. I was stunned. Ava actually lived here? That didn't seem right. At that moment, one of the duplex doors swung open and out stepped a blonde bombshell dressed in a cute floral blouse and jeans. She waved in my direction. It was Ava. I waved back and narrowed my eyes in disbelief, thinking how she seemed so out of place to be living in a dump house and neighborhood like this. But hey, was it right to judge her living arrangements? Maybe she was a struggling college student like I was at one time, and this was the best she could afford. That was how I attempted to rationalize the situation as I unlocked my passenger door and let Ava into my car. She greeted me energetically.
Hey, you!
"How's it going?" I said back coolly. Ava's smile faded somewhat, and she replied almost hesitantly this time.
I'm okay. I should probably warn you that I forgot to take my meds this morning, so you'll have to forgive me if Nicole takes over.
I gave her a surprised double take, my eyes blinking in disbelief. Understandably, that comment struck me as very odd. "Wait, what? Who's Nicole?" I asked her, confused.
She's my twin sister who died during childbirth. It's hard to explain, but when she died, her soul somehow got transplanted into me. So there's actually 2 people sharing my body instead of 1. Nicole lives inside my head and we talk all the time. She's kinda my bitchy, evil twin, and she can be a little overprotective of me, especially when I'm with a new guy. I know it sounds weird. I hope that doesn't change things between us, 'cause I really do like you, Dan. Nicole only kills the guys that hurt me.
Now, I know what you're all thinking right now. You're probably wondering why didn't I ditch this clearly psycho cray-cray right then and there and floor it the hell out of Dodge. In hindsight, I admit that should have been the final red flag. But of course, caught up as I was by her physical beauty, and desperate for a new girlfriend, I ignored the obvious warning sign like the idiot I was. Instead of doing the smart thing, I simply told her it was no big deal and continued seeing her. It was a decision that cost me my job, my sanity, and nearly my life.